So it is my privilege to introduce to you our speaker for this evening, and that is Renna Shesso. And I've known Renna for, last century and this century, so
yeah, there you go.
2 centuries. Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah. So, and Renna has graciously agreed to come on and tell us more about this absolutely awesome book. We have a picture of it here. If you go onto our website, go under Guest Resources, you'll see a picture of the book, and you can click on that, and it'll take you right into where you can buy it, because you're going to want to. Because, and you don't know this yet, Phil, but look at that symbol. He said, that is my favorite symbol, and there it is, right there in the book. I have it bookmarked. So
it's an ancient symbol, and
yeah.
it's very magical.
And actually, you just bought the book, so see, that's you have to turn to that page and look at it right away.
I will.
So, all right. So, Renna, thank you for coming on tonight.
My
That's
pleasure.
really cool.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So, this is not your first book.
It's not my first book. It's not even actually my second book.
Oh, my word. I don't have the other ones. I have this one. Yeah. I'll have this up on the website.
Yeah,
tonight,
terrific.
So, yeah. But this is kind of a switch.
Somehow not.
Okay. Or not.
My background is in the arts, the visual arts.
Okay.
So to me, both of these are like big time, really heavy science.
Okay.
I came from an era where you could make it out of high school without taking algebra because you took general math. And they figured you'd grow up to be a waitress and count change. So you needed
Seriously?
to know. Yeah. If you were in college.
I took physics in high school.
Well, you were probably identified as college track.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
And that's the entire difference.
Yeah,
I got to learn what happens when Farmer Brown goes to the fair with 10 bushels of apples and sells them for 39 cents a piece. Preferably not on his own
property. The county commissioners come down and shut them down. That's what happens nowadays. Yeah.
So my approach back into mathematics came from roots in astrology. My grandma was an amateur astrologer and taught me how to cast charts back in the day when you actually did that with a pencil.
Ooh.
And that's my real brush with mathematics. And then it was interesting. I didn't care so much about the bushels of apples.
When you start learning to apply some of the magical tools,
where it matters
and
to you,
all of a sudden it starts to be very interesting, and
yes,
you start
although
getting involved in it, and you can master something very well.
Actually, that is a lost art.
It is a lost art, yeah. Now, the same grandmother who was the amateur astrologer, her son went on to be a NASA rocket scientist, which is...
Yeah, but he hasn't probably published all these books.
You know, he may, but they'd be in a completely different field. I took a different approach. This technically is not an astrology book.
I know. I was looking through that, and I was going, wait a minute. I don't see all that stuff I see in an astrology book.
I think Tattered Cover has it in metaphysics under astrology, because where else would they put it? But this is not about figuring out what your birth chart means and what's going to happen next week.
No, I know.
This is like a stargazer book to go out in the backyard, find this stuff in the sky. Because, when you think about it, once upon a time, astronomy and astrology were the same science.
Exactly.
Not so recently, but they were. At this point, most astronomers don't want to hear a word about astrology.
You know, that's fighting
and
words.
I kind of get why, because they're not really what the system that astrologers use is not really in sync anymore because of the precession of the equinoxes, and that drives astronomers crazy.
Right.
Reasonably so.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, a lot of astrologers cannot find a thing in the sky. They're tied to books and charts, ephemeris that show positions. It's all printed in the book. Yeah. A lot of folks cannot go outside and say, well, look, there's Virgo, and oh, look, there's Mars moving through Leo. We can't identify those things.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
That's what this book has.
I know. The appendix in the back are so cool because it tells you where the planets are going to be moving through when. I thought that was really cool.
And it's based on what you can see, because earlier in the book there's some real identification stuff about finding the different astrological constellations in the sky. Now those are only the ones that are along the ecliptic, which is the path that the sun takes through the sky. So, nobody ever says, my sun is in Ursa Major.
No,
They better
don't.
not.
Yeah. Why? So doesn't it belong there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it'd be rising in the north.
Okay, different
Problematic.
time space. All right, different time
No
space.
problem. So the ones that are in part of the astrological belt, the zodiac, which means circle of animals, because most of them are animals. That's the path that the sun
Except
takes
mine.
through the sky. No, but most of them are
Yeah,
animals.
most of them are. Yeah.
There are different types of astrology systems, the Chinese, the Celtic. Do you address Egyptian?
I don't get into it. This is really based on get your butt out the door, under the night
Well,
sky.
How are you
naked
going
eye
to
vision-
see it? I mean, it
vision.
is practically impossible in Denver.
I live 2 blocks off Colfax, and most of the best stuff I did in this, in terms of actual recognition in the sky, was done on the back porch.
No.
Yeah, because think of it like training wheels. When you're up in the mountains, and we've all done mountain camping, and
yeah.
Colorado's just the best for that.
Boy.
Woo! It is such a huge panorama of stars. It's really hard to pick out individual constellations.
Yeah, it's like
It's overload.
grains of sand on the beach. I mean, you can
Yeah.
see the edge of the Milky Way, for heaven's sake.
Yes, and that you can pick out clearly, but picking out the other ones individually,
Yeah, I can't
it's kind of
do it,
tough.
yeah.
There's too much information.
Yeah.
But if you can start recognizing the most distinct, brightest stars in the particular little patterns they make with each other, here, where a lot of the other stuff is filtered out due to the horrible light pollution and whatnot, then you can transpose that the next time you're at a better viewing location. So in a sense, especially as you're beginning, it's easier to do it here. And that's what we've got.
So you can pick out Orion's belt.
Oh, easily.
You can pick out, well, the North Star. You should be able to pick out the Big Dipper.
North Star and Big Dipper, pretty easy. Cassiopeia. Some of the stuff that's along the ecliptic is actually kind of faint. They didn't get to that position by being prominent constellations. It's just the position they're in. But a lot of the stars in Taurus are particularly bright, and that's easy to see these days. That's Jupiter's in Taurus right now,
Okay.
astronomically.
Okay.
As the board lights up with angry astrologers.
Oh, go on, light up, come on.
Light up, yeah. Gemini is easy to spot, Castor and Pollux anyway.
Okay.
Certain stars in Virgo are very easy to spot. Leo has the shape of a crouching lion, so it's easy to start recognizing.
Okay.
Some of them are really clear cut. And
Now, what if you don't live in Colorado, though? What if you live in, like, South Florida or Canada? We have some viewers from Canada.
Not so much of a problem. There's
Really?
directions in here
Okay.
for how to adjust that. You're still going to see the same thing, but how high or low in the sky it is at any particular
Okay.
time of year would vary.
How about down under?
Not so good.
Yeah.
They can write
Okay.
their own books.
There you go. Well, you could, or you here. Somebody could pay you to go down there and write the Southern Hemisphere version.
You know, so much of the mythology that I drew on is Northern Hemisphere
Sure.
mythology.
I know. Yeah.
Someone that has those origins.
You'd have to
and
live
those
an
roots
entire
would make
life
it-
down
would
there
make a lot more
in order
sense.
to incorporate it. Yeah.
Well, and so much of our mythology and our crafts and everything else come out of being able to see the complete circular spin around the North Star. And if you're that far south, you're not seeing quite like that.
Right.
There's no real prominent constellation or main star marking the southern pole point in the sky. So
Except
I
for the
can't even imagine.
Southern Cross. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's not
no.
on that
No, it's not,
rotation,
yeah.
the pivot point there.
Okay.
Where
Interesting.
for us, you know, when
Interesting,
you
yeah.
think of our dances, you think of pottery on a wheel, you think of coiled basketry. So many of our crafts, spinning cord, spinning fibers, so much of that is based on
Drindle,
that
yeah.
rotation.
Yeah.
And we can see that rotation. If you can't see the circumpolar stars, the North Star area, what you're seeing instead is an arc of space, things moving up and overhead from right to left. And that's its own kind of parade of motion, but seeing that full circle around the North Star point, that became a point that represented eternity to any number of different cultures because those stars never set, they were eternal.
Right.
So
right.
that's where the soul of the pharaoh went.
Right. Yeah.
There's some pretty fascinating lore that comes up around the stars.
And
a lot of
that
it's
and
very
you talk
accessible.
about that in here?
Oh, yes. At
Oh,
length.
right. Ooh. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And what I stuck with here, because this is not based on telescope astronomy, this is based on, I started just calling it, to my mind, shamanic stargazing, where you go outside, you see it, but you make a connection with it. This is based on the visible planets. So we're back to a Chaldean system where counting the sun as a planet here, counting the moon as a planet, but then Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. Stop.
Yeah.
That's it. It just says 7. The good days of the week.
Charon is also identified as one of the influencing planetoid-type bodies?
And I didn't get into that because I couldn't find a lot of lore acknowledging that in ancient times. So there's stories of Chiron that are associated with different constellations, and those are told in here. Mm-hmm. But the asteroid Chiron, if that's...
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that
it's a planetary body. It's somewhat the same category as they've moved Pluto to. So.
Or not.
Well, and then there was that big fuss about a year ago where somebody on a slow week printed that big story about Ophiuchus, that other constellation that's hanging out between Sagittarius and Scorpio. And it didn't just show up. It's been there all along.
Oh, no. Just all of a sudden, somebody went outside. Oh, my God. What is that?
And it's been there all this time. So suddenly people are like, oh, my God, my tattoo says this, and now I'm a that. And it's like, That's the most press that astrology's gotten or astronomy's gotten of that kind for the longest time. And I'm sure it just made people crazy because people interpret it as, oh, my gosh, I'm not a Scorpio anymore. Well, with the precession of the equinoxes, you probably weren't anyway, but different question. I talk quite a bit about the precession of the equinoxes because it's one of those things that baffles people. I'm hungry, it must be lunchtime. That means it must be noon. Well, the clock might say 11:55 because the clock's running slow. And our solar system is a little bit like that. We are kind of losing
time.
It's changing.
Not the function of time, but just in terms of huge calibration throughout how everything matches up, that's shifted gradually over thousands of years.
So have we stayed current with that?
Mm-mm.
No, we're not going to.
Astrology is current from, year 0 or up to maybe about 200.
Common era, yeah. Common era. Yeah, okay. We have requests in the chat room saying, please, 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 have a stargazing workshop.
I'll be doing one at Beltania.
Well, okay. So, but that's a long way off.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like
it'll be maybe warmer by then.
And so tell us a little bit about your workshop at Beltania.
Well, it'll be happening for sure. I'll be doing something in the afternoon with the written material here, probably talking about the lore of Venus and Inanna, because that's pretty fascinating stuff. The Sumerians associated the planet Venus with their goddess Inanna,
right,
or Ishtar, and working with the lore of the descent of Inanna, those early poems. I think they're a literal description of what they saw going on in the sky, which doesn't take away their magic whatsoever. If anything, it just deepens the association with them. But her journey to the lower world, she goes into the lower world, she's heading to the east. When Venus goes into its conjunction with the sun and disappears in the west, it will next be seen in the east. So there's some parallels there that are fascinating. So I'll probably be talking about that on whatever workshop time zone they put me in, but then we'll be doing something in the evening. I've thought of trying to do stargazing workshops, but especially in the winter, sometimes it's so overcast that scheduling stuff is really iffy.
Are you going to be doing any of the other spiritual retreats?
I think I'll be going to Dragon Fest, but I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah, you've been to Dragon Fest quite often. We've known each other for many years as well.
Yeah. Yes, I've taken stone workshops with you, and have also done some drum building, but not with you. But it was just such a treat to sit offset and hear the drum.